Hello, 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 America. It's the American
Morning.
Awakening Squad coming to you with Signs of Life. If you're seeing all six of us right now, you see one special look on that guy with a Y on his shirt. I don't know what the Y is for. He'll talk about that in a little bit. He's also in his car, which is kind of fun.
He's got the angelic light coming down. Look at that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's right. Sort of screaming high. So we're keeping it real here. We're bringing it to
Guys,
you.
This is the best part of my day.
Right. And you're not going to miss it.
No, sir. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Calvin left out the punchline when he defended himself.
Oh, so we're having too much fun on a Friday here. It is Good Friday to be with y'all. I'm grateful as I am every day to be with my American Awakening Signs of Life teammates. We're going to bring you Dan Hazeltine and Jonathan Noel from Nashville in a little bit. Some real music, real time. First, we're going to kick it off with our own house worship band leader, Josh Jacob. Josh, what do you have for us, friend?
Yep. Thank you, John. So I'm going to go back to when I started my music career and some of the bands I was influenced by. One of them was Third Day. And so I just thought of this song. And for those of y'all that listen out there, just this is about giving our lives back to God, you know? So I hope you like it. Magnificent Holy Father, I stand in awe of all I see, of all the things you have created. Still you choose to think of me. Who am I that you should suffer? Your very life to set me free. The only thing that I can give you is the life you gave to me. This is my offering, dear Lord. This is my offering to you, God. And I will give you my life, for it's all I have to give, because you give your life for me. I stand before you at this altar. So many have given you more. I may not have much I can offer. What I have is truly yours. This is my offering, dear Lord. This is my offering to you, God.
Thank you, John.
That's good.
Amen.
That is the only thing we got, right? You strip it all away, which this time of Corona does, and that's what we got. We got ourselves and our offerings of our person, our efforts, our souls, our contributions to each other. That's what we got. And I want to celebrate today, as we try to do a little bit every day. As you've heard from us, we get on the phone every day to pray for you all. And for today, we're going to talk particularly about, as we do from time to time, the folks in the logistics world, the first responders, the people that are bringing us food, the people that are standing in harm's way for us in this time. They're in a very practical way, sacrificing their lives for us. Maybe not literally, but practically every day they're putting themselves out there. A special shout out to my son-in-law, fireman, who was telling the story of what it's like every day these days to go out there and deal with COVID infected people, and then day over day, a 72-hour shift, going back and having to decontaminate every single time, strip down, get completely taken head to toe with the right sort of soaps and having all the ambulances and the fire trucks and everything all stripped down sprayed with these huge hoses of disinfectant, and doing it over and over and over again for 72 hours. So just mind blowing to hear about. And that's one story. It's my son-in-law. It's a wonderful story. That's true for so many of you out there. We're so grateful to you. We offer you up in prayer, and we give you our thanks. And this show goes out to you all today. So in Gainesville, Florida, we have our friend, Pastor Joel Searby. Come on, brother. What do you got for us?
Hey, everybody. Great to see you. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. Got my door open, and hope some of that fresh air can come your way digitally here. So, I wouldn't be much of a pastor at all if I didn't try to listen to God, right? And we're all supposed to do that. But I've been given this little name here. And rather than try to give you a devotional or something like that today, I'm going to follow where God's been going. So I woke up this morning. I was drawn to this little book that I keep that was a gift from my grandpa. It's called A Diary of Private Prayer. I'm showing that if you're watching this online. It's John Bailey. His private daily prayers is a prayer for every morning, every evening. And this was part of today's prayer. And I want to read it. I want to read something. My grandfather gave me this book. And again, I'm going to show this if you're watching. He has a little note here, and I'm going to read that note in just a minute. And then I'm going to tell you what happened to me, and I'm going to speak to somebody out there who's listening. So here's part of this day's prayer. O God within me, give me grace today to recognize the stirrings of thy spirit within my soul, and to listen most attentively to all that thou hast to say to me. Let not the noises of the world ever so confuse me that I cannot hear thee speak. This is a prayer, a cry to say, God, I want to hear you speak. Over the years, I believe in God for a whole bunch of different reasons, but maybe the most significant one is that these kinds of things keep happening to me where there's no explanation about this thread that happens in a day or some word that I get or somebody's name who comes to mind, and I reach out to them and it turns out that they really needed something. There's no way I would have known that. I believe in the Holy Spirit of God working in us. My grandfather wrote this. He passed last year. He wrote this in May of 90. In response to what I just read. He said, twice recently, vision of a friend came to mind for no apparent reason. While praying today, I stopped to see him, told him he had been on my mind, asked him if he knew why. He immediately began to tell me that he was fairly seriously depressed. So that was my grandfather's response. And here's my response to somebody out there today. As I was praying through this, I was just asking God, let me hear your voice. I've been having this vision of somebody, a young man, sitting in an apartment, kind of dark and dingy. There's a couch, there's a TV, there's an Xbox for whatever reason. I'm just speaking what I heard, what I saw. There's a kitchen light that's kind of dim and it's daylight, but you've got the blinds closed and it's dark in there. And I feel like I'm supposed to tell you today, open the blinds, let the light in, open the door, go outside, take a walk. God has got something for you. There's purpose for your life. He loves you, and you're about to discover something that's going on. Now, I don't know who that's for that might be listening, but I'm just going to speak it out. And here's my challenge for all of us today. Listen to what God may be speaking. That little thought in your mind, that little stir in your soul or in your gut, that may not be just the chemistry of your body or the wanderings of your mind. That might be the Holy Spirit. So let's listen for God and speak out in encouraging words what we hear him saying. And for this young man that may be watching or hearing today, I'm just telling you, God's got purpose for your life. Get up, go take a walk. He's going to speak to you. That's what I got today, John.
Thank you, Joel. That's the second time I've heard the story today. We were on the morning prayer call, and Joel shared that, and it was just such an evocative image for me. Really stood out, that sense of where that person is. And thank you for painting that picture for us. And God bless you, whoever you are out there, that young boy or somebody who feels like that young man. God bless you. Over to Jeff Bethke in Hawaii. Jeff, what do you have for us, friend?
Hey guys, good morning. Good morning, Joel. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I want to chat about the Allen curve this morning. And it's a concept that's been kind of on my mind because I love not only social kind of studies and concepts and data, but then also like, how is that pertinent to this moment right now? Because I think this is such an upheaval and disruption of, social behavior and human interaction. Now, the Allen curve is a fascinating, study done, or curve called based on a study done back in the 70s by the guy, his last name was Allen, that basically showed that, nothing too mind-blowing, but it did once you dig into it, that basically what the Allen curve shows is physical distance. When there is physical distance, communication decreases and kind of intimacy decreases, right? And he actually studied this with actual math and data, that the less you're around someone, the less you communicate with that person and the less you feel close to that person in a physical distant way. But the crazy part that he found, though, is you would think that'd be a 1-to-1 ratio all the way down. But what he found is it's actually exponential. And he actually measured it in work environments by feet. Meaning, like, if you worked 5 feet away from someone, you were, like 10 times more likely to have, communication or interaction or felt intimate, in a close relationship, friendship with that person than if you were, only 20 feet away from that person. So it actually is an exponential curve. We're just barely moving away from someone in a physical way actually prevents and decreases your communication drastically, right? And then what's interesting is this was in the 70s, and then just probably, 5 or 10 years ago with the telecommunications and work and the internet, he then kind of readdressed some of the studies. And you would think that obviously with the hyperconnectivity we now have with the internet and stuff like that, you would find that, okay, as physical distance decreases, now that we're going more online to email and all these different things, that you would think the internet-based communication would skyrocket. And he actually said, again, even with the math, he found the opposite to be true. If you don't see that person in real life, then you're less likely to even talk to them on email or on the phone or on text. So basically all chains of communication actually decrease when there's not a physical presence element sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, and there's not a closeness there. Now, how is that relevant for us today? Obviously, we can't physically be present with each other right now. We can't be close to each other. We can't be even within 6 feet, which is hilarious that rule is true, because he actually even talks about in his studies, like he measures under 6 feet, that actual distance and what that does for social interaction. So I think that's fascinating based on the 6 feet barrier right now. But what does that mean for us right now? I do think there's a way that we can kind of short circuit or cheat the process in this season. And what I mean by that is we have to understand that based on the Allen curve, we will be tempted to talk to people less and less in this isolation. We will be tempted to pull back, to not communicate, to not be as relational. That is actually like the inertia of the moment will take us there. So you have to cheat the system. You have to actually put reminders in your path, cues in your path, and rituals in your path to keep it so that when things hopefully start going back to normal, the relationships aren't just kind of like, a shock to the system, but actually just kind of picking up where you left off, or maybe even picking up closer. And so that's my encouragement for you today is, who could be 5 people that you could set some type of rhythmic, and we talked about this a couple of days ago, even from a different perspective, but set some type of cadence of, I'm going to call them once a week. I'm going to text them once a week. I even just text them. I did it this morning. I texted a couple people and just said, hey, I was thinking of you. I was praying for you. And it led to some really beautiful interactions on communication. And so that's my encouragement today is you have to kind of really force it and cheat it so that then when things actually go back to normal, then you can actually put that physical presence variable back in place. But I think that's something we need to think on so that we don't get out of this just more and more isolated, more and more lonely, and more disconnected, because that would be really, really sad. So let's put some things in our path that can lead us to the right way. So that's my thing to chew on for today.
Outstanding, Jeff. That's fantastic. I love that work. I'm not unfamiliar with the Allen curve, but thank you for your teaching on that. So I think that the Allen curve is spot on, and I talk about that in my book that's coming out later this year a bit on a different format. But the upshot of this, the point I'm going to make for today is it's true in the physical world, and of course you can't ultimately cheat the physical world or the psychological world exactly, but the spiritual world does work in a different dimension than that, or at least it cuts it through a different axis. And so I think the thing you're talking about, Jeff, is something where effectively, though all the physical forces will lead us that way, we can take it a different way. We can actually be in contact with people in other ways that transcend that sort of normal physical connection, which you're speaking about. And we regularly convey to everybody out there, hey guys, you got to be in contact with other human beings. That's just necessary. It's necessary to life, and it's going to keep you a lot better off. So Jeff, thanks so much, man, for sharing.
Well, I loved what you just shared too about that language of the axis. That was really powerful. Of like, yeah, there's a spiritual element there that clearly he wasn't, looking at with his research. But I think you're so right. It's almost like, there's the graph, the XY axis, but the spiritual axis is almost like the Z axis. It brings a 3D dimension that doesn't have to live by those rules. So I love that. That's powerful.
One super tangible example of that, I was in contact with a buddy via text this morning, a wonderful friend of mine out in the West Coast. So we're 3,000 miles away. And of course, we're not going to see each other for a very long time. He's a senior executive with World Vision and doing great work in this time. And we both independently of each other said, hey, I'm going out for a run, but I'll keep you in my prayers. And I said that to him, and he said it back to me separately, like as if one was a text, one was an email. And so, we're actually on different coasts, out on runs, each one of us somehow bearing in mind each other. So anyway, that was just from the last hour. So I thought I'd share
cool.
that. Okay, and now we're going to go to our friend in the car, Calvin Lee. Oh,
friend in the car.
You look even better close up.
What is up?
You do. You got some nice
What
daylight
is up,
on you right
everyone?
there.
The lighting is good, if nothing else. So everyone who's watching, as is obvious, I am calling from my car. So I thank you for your grace of shoddy internet service, as well as Mitt's punchlines from earlier. But again, this is my favorite part of the day, just being with you and being with you guys here. And so, yeah, just grateful. I will call in from anywhere. But anyways, couple of stories, headlines for today. In so many ways, we do feel like we're just living in a completely different world, a whole new world. And so here are a few stories of the ways that we're pivoting and planning for life after the pandemic. So our first story, we have President Trump issued new guidelines to states on Thursday aimed at easing social distancing restrictions and reopening parts of the country. The White House strategy outlines a three-phase approach, part of a plan called Opening Up America Again. President Trump said that we are not opening all at once, but one careful step at a time. Each phase requires a 14-day period of downward trajectory of COVID-19 cases in order to move on to the next phase. So the first phase keeps current social distancing guidelines pretty much in place, except that larger venues, including some restaurants, theaters, gyms, and churches, could operate under strict physical distancing protocols. In phase two, we have in areas that are showing no signs of resurgence, students can return to school, residents can resume non-essential travel, and bars could even operate with diminished standing room occupancy. Now, the guidelines still encourage companies to practice telework if possible, and vulnerable people would still be encouraged to stay at home. The third phase continues to gradually ease restrictions, allowing vulnerable people to return to social settings while practicing social distancing. And the president said that some states could even lift strict, sending people back to work and opening schools up before the current guidelines aimed at slowing the spread end in May 1st. So we'll see which states open up, but more to come on that. Our next story, we have Amazon embracing a completely new sales tactic, sell fewer items. The surge in delivery demand, excuse me, as well as the worker absences during Corona has overwhelmed the e-commerce giant. So much that has begun removing fixtures that would normally lead customers to add fewer items to the cart. So the site has removed the most popular recommendation widgets to show shoppers what other people buying similar items are also purchasing. Also, they're planning to cancel Mother's Day and Father's Day promotions, as well as push back indefinitely Prime Day, which is the annual July shopping extravaganza. So the retail giant is currently trying to determine when it'll be able to return to a pre-coronavirus capacity, according to the report. And it's recognizing that it may not be able to, it may not be capable of meeting the 2-day shipping promises across all categories for at least another 2 months. So again, more to come on that, but still very interesting of how we're pivoting and planning for life after all this. So going to our discussion question of the day, I'm going to pitch it over to Marissa. All you, sis.
Hello, all. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, everybody is thinking about what life is going to be like after Corona. Today, we're talking about a report that was published just this month. Several experts in the report, which was published by Deloitte and Salesforce, several experts are talking about 4 different scenarios, things that could happen over the next 3 to 5 years, basically telling a story of a world that's been radically changed by Corona. The report, which you can check out on your own, it's called The World Remade by COVID-19. It doesn't make specific predictions for what the world is going to be like, but it actually focuses on what we don't know. It really has the intent of helping leaders prepare for a lot of different scenarios. And on one end of the spectrum, we've got a short pandemic that, of course, as we're seeing now, hurts small and medium-sized businesses. But really, most of us come out of it. We can kind of get back to life the way it was. And really, all of us as consumers, we're really just forced to reevaluate a lot of our pre-pandemic habits, particularly with our relationships with one another and work. On the other end of the spectrum, they present a vision for a very prolonged, nearly impossible to contain virus that leaves the world way more isolated and distrustful and suffering than ever. Again, this is the absolute worst case scenario. And in this scenario, nations and people turn inward. We limit contact with the outside world, and we're really all focused on survival more than anything else. Again, the scenarios are supposed to be confronting us with possible realities that might be sort of unsettling or surprising. And it's really to get us thinking and preparing for what is to come, especially the stuff that doesn't seem intuitive. So, of course, people, the good news is that our future has not been written yet. The authors of the report note that basically how we respond and how we interact with one another and how we respond to this crisis is one of the biggest unknowns as far as everything that they can look at. And basically, we have the biggest say in how everything plays out. So again, we all know generally, just as people, as decent people trying to live in the world, that we should be looking out for one another. We shouldn't be, buying up all the toilet paper or buying up all the milk in grocery stores just because we can. But today's question for all of us as people of faith, with culture and community basically being rebuilt right in front of all of us, right as we speak, do we have any other kinds of responsibilities to each other, to the world around us, because of our faith and how we're choosing to show up in the world? Should that impact us and what we do any more than anyone else? What are you guys' thoughts? I'd love to hear it.
It's a great question, Marissa. I'm gonna play the pastor role here and just say that it's pretty clear to me, if you're following Jesus, we have a call to not only look after our own interests, but also to the interest of others. Mm-hmm. And so it's not, and the way that we do that is not just like in our hearts and our minds. We have to actually look out for them. And so I think the responsibility that I'm thinking and hearing is I have to seek those needs out, because I should not expect that people who are in need will either share them or will, bring them to me. And so what am I doing as a person of faith to say, like, I'm going to pursue you, like God pursues me. I'm going to pursue you in finding out what your needs are and how I can serve you.
That's really good. That's really good. What are your thoughts, Jeff? I'd love to hear from you.
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I still need to, I was going to kind of say what Joel said, but I love that. And so, I'd love to hear other people come in with that too, which I love, by the way. I think we had some technical difficulties, so we're getting stuck on your face, Marissa, which is such a treat.
I know, but
you can do that subtitle lift up thing where when any of us is talking, just but that is a good question. No, let's hear from the rest. I want to hear from the rest of the team on that one. I want to glean wisdom, because I feel like so many of you guys have done this so well and display it.
Yeah. Calvin, thoughts?
Man, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that remembering who we are and who our God is. I feel like I've been saying that a lot and it's been on my heart. But God is a creator. He is an innovator. He created everything we see and created us. And so, again, I feel like there's also something in this moment where there's an opportunity to be part of the rebuilding of our society and our culture. How can we be asking for these God ideas of how we can be vessels of innovation, vessels of creativity, and pour out into people in the ways that each of us uniquely can.
Yeah.
So I think there's a really cool opportunity when you got a blank piece of paper, what can't we do? What can't we imagine at a time like this? And I think, hey, if our God is a creator and can imagine great and amazing things, why can't we?
Yeah, that's actually all. That was what I was thinking, and I love that, Calvin. I love how you said that. That sparked something in me too. Of like, that's what I've been wrestling through, even with this article, and even some other prominent articles in the Christian space. They're just towing the line of doomsday to me a little, of just like, okay, this is going to get really bad, which it will. You need to be prepared. You need to read. You need to know what's coming. You need to shore up the, what you have. But I do feel like, especially as followers of Jesus, we believe in the horizons of new possibilities, right? That like there's things we can't even see in the way that the Spirit will renew, redeem, create. This is literally like that's the Genesis mandate and the Genesis principle of like, hovering over the waters of chaos, and then comes beauty and order and goodness. And I feel like that exact principle, can happen in this next season. That not just God's going to do it, but I think as His representatives. We can go out over those chaotic waters and hopefully, create order and beauty out of chaos. So, yeah, I think that's the call for sure.
Mm.
I think it's really important for people who are like engineers and thinkers and creators. This is for you guys too. This is not like, the pastor is going to go out there and love people. I mean, I am really praying for people who like have logistic minds and engineering minds and who are creatives and who are, you can take the things that God has given you and create newness in this time in ways that will serve other people. So go do it, man.
That's good.
I doubled down on that. This is not exactly the pastor's time. As important as pastors are, for real, right? It's about people that are emboldened with the love of God inside them to take the gifts that they've got, just the way Joel just said, right? Engineers, logistics people can imagine new horizons. We talked about it, a few days ago, the Google and Apple, partnership. I mean, look, with the right imagination, there's so much that can be done differently, wired into the future that'll be better. And as Jeff said, it does sort of teeter on doomsday, and it's never going to be the same again. And it's probably true. It's not going to be the same again, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be worse. So that's a good
distinction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So good.
And I'll give a third angle to the pastor thing you just said, John, where I feel like yes to everything, but I also should say that, but also everyone's a pastor at some level, right? That Latin word comes from literally shepherding. And I think everyone can kind of shepherd not only their own talents and gifts in this moment of, man, you need to really cultivate that and tend to that, but also using those to gently love, serve, your neighbor. And so I think, everyone can shepherd in this moment for sure.
Absolutely. And another thing that I've been thinking about is, again, right, in normal times, the way I think a lot of us functioned prior to Corona, there was a lot of, us inside our four walls of the church. We've got our sense of peace. We've got our sense of boldness and courage. And, we wish everybody else the best. Well, again, and I know nobody does that on purpose, but there are a lot of lines of sort of separation sometimes because we like to be with the people who believe like us. We like to be with people who seem like they're not causing a lot of friction in the way that we believe or do things. But I would think that right now, if people of faith have anything to offer, I'm hoping that we are vehicles and receptacles of peace out in the world. We say we believe we've got a rock, that we can run to in times of trouble. We say we believe, in a God who continues to say, "Fear not, fear not, fear not." Well, then I'm hoping that we and other folks of faith are not being vehicles of fear, of like bringing anxiety to people, like casting our cares on people because we're so wrapped up in ourselves. This goes back to what you were saying, Calvin, this notion of like, who are we, right? If we cannot be bringers of life, bringers of peace, bringers of comfort, people who are thinking about others first before themselves, then, what they say that it's really times that are rough really serve to reveal who people really are. And I believe that the God of the universe is still here with us, is still moving and inspiring, even just us on this daily show. So I've got to believe that that there is more that we can cling to, that we can offer the world, just even a sense of how to get some peace. Let us not hoard that, guys. If we're not going to hoard the toilet paper, let's not hoard the peace.
That's good.
Amen.
That's the takeaway line of the day, I think. Suck to not suck, I think, and don't hoard the peace.
Exactly. Don't hoard the TP or your love or peace for other people.
Or the peace.
All right, so it's time for the movie line of the day, and over to you, Mr. Bethke, I believe.
Yes. Great movie. Yes, great movie line for today. Again, Marissa, great choice. I don't remember when did this movie come out? I think I saw it like a decade ago at least.
Exactly.
Before Tom Cruise started dominating all the Mission Impossible, add-ons continually. That is like the only movie he does now. But no, phenomenal movie, Vanilla Sky. And who was it with again? Tom Cruise and Penelope
Cruz.
Yeah. And isn't Cameron Diaz in that movie too?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah. Yes, it's a great cast, great movie, and it's deep and good. So with that, let's see it.
I used to be one of those guys that just snowboarding through his life with no focus whatsoever.
When did you change?
About 5 minutes ago.
Every passing minute is another chance to turn it all around.
So good.
Real.
Nice.
I feel like that's truer for right now than ever, that this is every minute. Yeah.
That's right. It's right. You didn't have to have some deep revelation 12 years ago to have the permission to sort of turn and pivot and go another way. You can change anytime you want to.
That
Yes,
is
I love that.
inspiring. That is inspiring. Was that the Peter Gabriel soundtrack behind that too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Woo! All right. Well, with that, let's bring us to Nashville. And Dan Hazeltine, what do you got for us, friend?
Hey, how are everybody doing today? How are everybody doing today? Boy, in case you wanted to know how I'm doing
We
today.
is good, Dan. We is good.
Good.
We do good.
I love the discussion today. First off, there's a friend of mine who wrote a fantastic book of reflections. I'm just going to put this up here if anybody can see it. It's called "May It Be So," and it's just like
I love that book. I endorsed that book.
Did you really? Oh,
yeah.
well,
Scott's
great,
a good friend. Are you friends with Justin or Scott?
I am friends with both of them.
They're amazing.
And yes,
amazing.
and actually, one of the prayers in here is a simple statement. It says,
Hold it. Justin, Scott, who are they?
Okay, so Justin McRoberts is a pastor and a singer-songwriter based in California. And then Scott Erickson is an artist and speaker, a painter. He does a lot of illustrations. He's one of these all-around creative guys, and he did all of the paintings that are a part of this. He's based up in Seattle, Washington, and they collaborated on a series of books so far now. But they have these kind of short prayers in them, and one of the prayers is just this simple phrase that just says, "May I have the wisdom and patience to let questions grow, rather than anxiously harvest answers whose season has not yet come."
Ooh.
And I just, in your discussion today, I just feel like that's a powerful thing to try to do is to not be so anxious that all we're searching for is this certainty or the right answer, but rather let those questions grow. Let ourselves have a little bit of peace in the midst of the chaos, and recognize that in that space, we actually can lean closer into faith versus our need for a certain kind of certainty. So anyway, that was just a thought that I had. My guest today is someone I've known for quite a while now. He's a friend. I first met Jonathan Noel at Greenville College in Illinois. He was an upperclassman. I was an incoming freshman, and Jonathan was really in charge. He was one of these students that would lead a chapel service, a lot of the worship songs. He was a music student there as well at the school. And there was something about him. We've probably all experienced it at different points where we hear somebody playing music and sometimes it moves us, but then there's other people who just sit and they have a certain kind of countenance, a certain humility, but then at the same time are just masterful at the craft that they have taken on. And for Jonathan, it was both singing and playing the piano. And Jonathan and I have collaborated on different songs throughout the years. We co-wrote a song that ended up on a Jars record. We've worked together on songs that have been on other projects. Jonathan's made a few solo projects himself. He's collaborated with artists like Andrew Peterson, Margaret Becker, Fernando Ortega, Point of Grace. But he's just a phenomenal artist. He's now he's a worship pastor and is finishing up some grad work around worship studies currently. And he comes to us from Raleigh, North Carolina right now. So hi, Jonathan. How are you today?
Hey, I'm well. How are you, Dan?
Doing very well.
It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks. So we have there's a Vermont connection here too. We probably should speak of real fast, correct?
Yes. Well, that's where I was born and raised, and apparently that's where some of you are broadcasting from today, which is very cool.
Nice.
That's right. That's where I'm from. I'm broadcasting from right now, up in the farm in Woodstock, Vermont area. So
that's fantastic. We got to talk.
Thinking about you here, Jonathan. And what a great studio you've got there.
Thanks. It gets the job done. It's above the garage here. I've got my own little nest, and thankfully you can't see this direction right now because I threw everything.
I think that's true probably of all of us, right?
Yeah.
Maybe except for Calvin, who's in the car. The car, we can kind of see the whole car almost. Except
I did manage to get out of my pajamas though, so I'm wearing jeans. This is good.
I appreciate that. It's good. I do have to tell a lot of the artists that please wear pants for this and try not
to.
You
never thought.
I know things you never really think you'd have to put into it. Jonathan, we'd love to hear you play and sing some music for us today. Are you willing? Yeah, I see that there's something that looks similar to a piano there.
Yeah.
How do you feel about playing some music for us?
I'd love to. Thanks for asking. The first song I want to do is one that actually has a connection back to Greenville College. When I was a student there, we took a trip to a monastery in southern Indiana called St. Meinrad's. Some of you are probably familiar with it. And it was actually this time of year. It was right after Easter, and a refrain, an antiphon that the monks were chanting there was one that kind of got wedged in my mind. And when I came back to Greenville, it was just kind of I don't want to say haunting me. It was just staying with me, and the beauty of it. Years later, I got to go back there and meet the gentleman who wrote that refrain, along with 2,000 other refrains. His name's Father Columba Kelly. He's now with the Lord, just passed away a couple years ago. But his music, this particular refrain was one that he wrote, and I built this song around it. And then it was recorded on a record or two later on. So this is called The Stone.
The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Hallelujah. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Hallelujah. Ascribe greatness so high. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Hallelujah. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Hallelujah. Ascribe greatness, ascribe greatness, ascribe greatness to the rock so high. For you are a sanctuary, a shelter in the shade from the heat of the day. You are a hiding place, a tower and a refuge from the storm and the rain. My rock and foundation, you have become my salvation. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Ascribe greatness, ascribe greatness, ascribe greatness to the rock so high, to our God most high.
Woo!
Woo! Hey,
That was awesome, man.
Thank you.
That's
Brilliant.
good. Where is that? You said it. Where's that song on? What album?
It was on a record that actually it came out 20 years ago called "A City on a Hill," songs of praise and worship. It was
Awesome.
a compilation record, and Jars thankfully recorded that, and it was a beautiful recording of it. And the whole project is great.
That's cool.
My wife and I recorded a live record just a couple years ago. We included it on that as well. It's available if you go to our Facebook page. You can find it there.
A Night in the Oaks, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And Dan was actually there. Dan came and joined us. It was a really fun night celebrating 20 years of music, and Dan sang with me on that song and one or two others. And
Yeah,
it
that was
a great
fun.
night.
Fun night. Great record too, by the way. Excellent. They captured it very well that evening. So Jonathan, this season, a lot of times I've been asking the artists just how they're holding up, how this kind of season of quarantine has sort of changed their creative flow, like the kind of things that they're able to do. Has it been more or less creative? And I know even for you too, it's this season also represented a little bit of loss, some family members, and so I know that even in the context of everybody kind of isolating a little bit more, it's been a pretty unusual, uncharted season for you. At the same time, how has this season? What has it kind of drawn you to, and as you've been kind of living out all of this life and uncertainty and change?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think that like most of us in this current season, a lot of introspection, thinking a lot about what's important, the things that are right in front of you all the time that you're away from and kind of taking for granted, be that family or be that even your job or your art. So I've been thinking a lot about what is important. As you mentioned, my family recently experienced a devastating loss, the loss of my little brother back in January, and he lived his life so well, just full. Like he just loved life and lived it very fully. And he has been such an inspiration for me for so many years, for as long as I can remember. But certainly now, looking at his life, I'm inspired to, well, I mean, right away I was inspired. Okay, I need to really just kind of live. And then the COVID thing happened, and so that kind of put me. I think about Joseph when he was taken away to Egypt, and he was, thrown in a dungeon, and he had a lot of time of isolation, a lot of time to think. But that was sort of a major inhale to a major exhale when he was finally out of that situation. He became a force of life and restoration. And so that's what I'm praying that this will be for me and for all of us. Really, that the exhale of this will just be, wow, like something really important.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, it's great. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention your wife at some point during this little interview, because I do hope that she will be on the show as well. You've done a lot of collaborating with her over the year, musically. And so I wanted to just acknowledge her and hope that she will be able to jump in here at some point on the show. That you guys have done some work. Was it a record looking at the songs of Fanny Crosby?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. We a few years ago we was the 100-year anniversary of Fanny Crosby's passing, and so looking at her legacy of music, which is huge. I don't know if you know, like she wrote under different names because hymnals didn't really want to go for just a whole hymnal full of her songs, so she wrote under many names. And they finally compiled those names, and they've discovered that she wrote like 10,000 hymns and poems.
Wow.
And so we thought we should acknowledge that. That's a pretty big deal. So we did a 6-song EP with a bunch of her songs, and Amanda, that was under it was an Amanda project, and she rocked it. That's also,
brilliant. Well, would you play us another song before we head out?
Absolutely.
You up for
Thank
that?
you. I'd love to. I think because you're in Vermont, it would only be appropriate that I, well, not you're in Vermont, but some of you are in Vermont, and that's where I'm from, that I did a song that was inspired by where I grew up. As you mentioned, I used to and still do collaborate with Fernando Ortega and Andrew Peterson, who both write really well about where they're from. And so I was inspired by them to write a song about where I'm from. So this is a song called Linden. I want to dedicate it to my brother's memory and to my family in Linden, who will be watching, or probably are watching this right now. This is a song about how we, well, it's based on a quote that's a saying that's from New England, that we say, you can't get there from here. And that's the idea. I ran with that. So what is one place that you can't get to from here? And that's the past. So the song is about living life, living this day to the fullest. This is called Linden.
She finds me in my slumber. She pours some light into my eyes. In my eyes. Pictures weave in my mind. A spinning wheel takes me back again. The trees are white, and we are children. We try to run and catch the sun, and we are held by something. And when we sleep, we are angels. Nothing hanging around our ankles. I wake and chase the end, but I can't get there from here. And this is what we have now. Tomorrow's yesterday, like holy ground we walk upon. Children, and with the sun it will be done, and leave leave us to our dreaming. And when we sleep, we are angels. Nothing hanging around our ankles. I wake and chase the end, but I can't get there to where the mountains hem me in. In my dreams, I'm there again. And when we sleep, we are angels. Nothing hanging around our ankles. I'll chase your streets again, but I can't get there. I can't get there from here.
Oh, Jonathan.
That's a way to end the show right there.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Thanks, John.
Jonathan,
So good.
thank you so much for
Oh.
being with us today, for visiting with us from Raleigh. Everybody, Jonathan Noel.
Thank you, everybody.
mm.
Enjoyed it.
Special blessings to you and your family. And yeah, keep
Thank
on
you.
making music and encouraging everybody.
Thanks,
It's,
Ken.
it's amazing stuff.
Thanks, everybody. I'm loving your show. I look forward to seeing more of it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being with us. That was a treat.
It really was.
Thank you. My pleasure, honestly.
So much. And Jonathan, as we close here, I'd just like to say, what a wonderful thing to call out for us, to live in the present. That's what we got, right? We don't have the
That's
future or the past. We just got the holy present. So thank you so much for that. Powerful word for us all. And everybody out there, thanks for being with us on today's show. If you joined us by live stream, and please look us up on podcast on all platforms. Would love for you to check us out there and leave a review. We're heading into the weekend here. We'll be thinking about you, praying for you over the weekend. And as we say every day, God bless y'all. Keep fighting a good fight. We're going to get through this. God is with you. God loves you. God's got you. Until a couple days from now, that's all. Thanks so much. Bye now.